Three, two, one. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm really tired. I've had like 6 meetings today, so I'm tired.
You're being very kind. I appreciate that you're still making time for this.
No worries.
So Simone, let's talk about how we first met. What was the first time we worked together?
It was hosting the marketing awards, right? That
Yeah.
you were organizing. Yes.
I feel what struck me about you as an MC, and I tell this to a lot of people, it was that you had this vulnerability about you. I don't know if it's because of what you were going through at the time.
That was like probably one of the worst nights of my life. Yeah.
I think from the get-go, for when we talk about acting, right, we always look out for believability. Like you're not overacting, you're not underacting, you're just committing to it. I felt like you were very believable as an MC. And I don't know how strange that sounds to you, but even as you're presenting, even as you're interacting, even as you're doing like over-the-top stuff, I felt you were very believable. And that's why I felt like as a producer or as an audience member maybe, I felt like I connected with you then. And that's why I still message you on Instagram.
I know, it's great. I love it.
I feel like I connected with you then. And from then on, I was a believer in Simone Heng.
I think in the speaking world, they talk about it a lot. And actually, it's really probably one of the most sought after things right now in the professional speaking world is being authentic. But it's particularly difficult if you've been on stage for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
To still become across as authentic. That's really hard, actually, because once you get into the mode and you're doing it and you're going through the motions. And early in my career in Dubai, I was like that. I was very much in automation mode because I was booking so much work. So I just was not really present.
Yeah.
But, circumstances aligned themselves to make me really, really present and kind of really, I think authenticity comes from gratitude as well. If you trace that back, I mean, if you're complacent, you can't be authentic because you're checked out. You're not even there, And I think I was earlier in my career a bit complacent.
Yeah.
It's funny because I made a promise to myself that obviously I stepped away from my radio career to go out full time as a speaker. Yeah. Now the MC work right now obviously is still contributing a big chunk to my income, but eventually I want to be a full time global speaker, so traveling all around the world, and then that's all that I will do. Yeah. But I promised myself that if the volume of the MC work kept going the way it was going, which it is now. Yeah. That I would never, ever be complacent with any of my clients. Like even my charity clients, that it's for a charity and it's free. Like they will get 1,000% from like the hair, makeup, dress, nails, like a full bespoke service. Yeah. I basically wanted the speaking services that I was providing to be top tier in the market. The same way, why brands, like I just had a meeting with TWG or LG or these kind of top tier brands in their own market would want to collaborate with me. So I wanted to be able to signify that the brand was quality and that I cared. Because a lot of the other hosts I think in the market don't actually want to be hosts. They're like actors who are just doing this for the paycheck. So, and people might laugh, but I actually really, really believe that emceeing and even more so professional keynote speaking is an absolute skill. And I know that for a fact because of how many coaching clients I get without even trying. And now I've even stopped the coaching because I'm at the limit. Yeah. Who will just say, please, I want to be able to speak like you. Yeah. So if it wasn't a skill, why would people be willing to pay that sort of money to come and learn it from me? Yeah. It's absolutely a skill.
Can I just check, because I don't have that many friends called Simone. What do people abbreviate your name? Do they call you Simi, Moni? Or what do you?
My goddaughter calls me Godmamone. I used to be called Hengy at high school.
Okay.
The football guys would be like, Hengy. Yeah. But no.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Okay, we need to clear up something once and for all. You need to tell us the anatomy of your accent.
Oh, so I'm Singaporean born.
Yeah.
And then Australian raised from the age of 3 till 17.
Okay.
Then 17 went to live in Switzerland.
Yeah.
So I can understand Swiss German and speak High German.
Okay.
And then went back to Australia for university, and then my father passed away, and then I had this like mortality moment and moved out to Asia in 2005. So moved to Singapore 2005, 2009. Got poached by Virgin Radio Dubai. I spent 5 years in the Middle East working on air for Virgin Radio, and then went back to Australia to be on the radio then at the same time as taking care of my mum.
Yeah.
And then in 2015 came back to Singapore. So it's kind of a global accent, but definitely has a more Asian lilt to it now than it used to. Yeah. Yeah.
I think when I heard when you did the voiceover work for the McDonald's fish and chips, it was definitely a bit more Singaporean. Right? I felt you transformed a little bit. Like
but never. I think the idea with that is like never to the point that you're patronizing, right? Never to the point that I'm. I'm kind of lucky compared to I think a lot of Pan-Asian girls in the market. Like both of my parents are Singaporean, so I know all the Malay words for makan, tidur, tahan, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not making up those meanings. I've known them since I was 3 years old, right? I suppose that helps to make me a little bit less patronizing when I'm emceeing and I throw things of those in, more authentic, because I was thinking about this in the car on the way over. Like I definitely live straddling all those places I've lived.
Yeah.
All of those worlds. I'm definitely not 100% Australian. I feel more comfortable in Singapore than I do in Australia, frankly. Yeah. And recently I was in Phuket for a wedding with Orang Puteh.
Yeah.
And I found myself at the table like changing the way I communicate.
Yeah.
And I just felt was like a flashback to growing up in Australia. Like I'm changing how I communicate to make these white people more comfortable. And but yet I camouflage so seamlessly.
Yeah.
They have no idea how Asian I actually am. I talk about my speech is on human connection, right? And that's a topic of study. So that's one of the things that I talk about in a case study called Commonality Connects.
Yes.
And it's where, you're subconsciously augmenting your accent to move yourself closer to the people you're trying to connect with.
Yes.
So it's not something I do consciously, but if you wanted to connect better with people and you did it consciously, I still think it would help you.
There was once I was in a car for my sister's wedding in America, and I was riding with an American Chinese guy, but grew up in America, so he's completely American.
But doesn't think he is, thinks he's really Chinese. That's what I love.
I just remember it was a half-an-hour car ride, and I found that throughout the course of the car ride, my accent became more white. And we were talking about it. I thought it was so funny.
It's called bidialectalism. Bidialectalism. I think that's what it's called. I Googled it. I hope I'm saying that right. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's like growing up, if my mum was making a call to Singapore, her accent would immediately change. And I do that now to not, and it's not a networking manipulation, swap your business card kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's simply this human need to move our connection faster together. That's all that is, which I think is beautiful.
I love how you say that with a smile.
No, it's true. It's true. But I smile because this is my passion. This is what I'm studying,
definitely.
Right? So, yeah.
You know what, Simone? I had some other questions, but once you put something out there, I feel like I have to talk about it. So let's talk about, if you don't mind, your father passing away. How old were you at the time?
19.
I can't imagine losing my father today. What was it like for you then?
I think it was just one of those like seminal, life-changing moments that people always say to me, oh, my grandmother or my grandfather died. Like, unless your grandmother and grandfather adopt you legally and take care of you, it's not the same. And I even have some of my best friends say that because they can't fully understand because they have both of their parents. But it is life-changing. A direct family member, a brother, sister, or a parent, it is something that, please, if anyone's watching this, the one takeaway I want from you is when somebody is grieving from that loss, please don't say to them that it's like losing my grandparents. And that is what is said all that. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. Were you studying at the time?
Yeah. So I'd come back from Switzerland.
Yeah.
And I was a year back from Switzerland in Australia.
Okay.
Yep. And started at uni. And then it was Christmas. And I still have a video of this, really scary, because it was Christmas. We did a home video. And my dad was kind of holding his stomach during this karaoke. Him and all the uncles were like singing. And my sister forced him finally to go to the doctor and get it checked. And he'd actually been passing blood for quite a few days. But he's just this Teochew man who never wants to get things checked up, you know, like
tough guy.
self-medicate with Panadol or like whatever. So the other takeaway is, if you're listening to this and watching this,
Go see your doctor.
don't play fool. Just go, and if there's and even now it's made me, like, I've had all the full genetic testing done. I go get a full health check every year. At one point, directly after Dad died, I was going every 6 months. I was so paranoid. I remember coming to Singapore in 2003 for my Teochew grandmother's funeral.
Yes.
And my dad, as the eldest son of the Chinese family, had to do the speech at the wake.
Yeah.
And I had this moment, and I remember sitting there looking at my dad and thinking, oh my goodness, I hope I never have to be up there doing this. And I wonder what it would be like to have to get up at my dad's funeral and speak about him.
Oh, man.
And the following year, I was there at his funeral speaking for him. I feel like my law of attraction is so crazy, powerful. Anything I think happens, bad or good. So yeah, my thoughts nowadays are so curated because you've really got to be careful what you speak and what you think and what you put out there. So what I realized was, as I was watching him on stage at the wake doing that speech, the cancer was already growing in his body. So that's why I get checked so often, because it really is, when they say it's a silent killer, it really is. If I had pulled him off stage at that wake in 2003 and said, Dad, go and get a check right now, I want you to get a full body health check, he would still be alive.
So that was a year.
Yeah.
So wow. That's,
Yeah, maybe less than a year, actually. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. How does that change, something like that change your outlook on life or relationships or,
I think I had a lot of trauma for many years about it, and I didn't deal with it. In fact, I didn't deal with any of it until my mum got sick.
Yeah.
And then it literally trauma snowballs in your life. And I wish that I'd just gone and gotten some proper counselling, grief counselling. I did, I was a student, so I had no money. So I did have some free counselling at the university that was just terrible, that scared the living daylights out of me.
Yeah.
But now with Mum getting sick, I've done it all differently because I've learned from that how to manage these situations a lot better. Yeah.
No, just now when you're talking about that, him holding his stomach or something, I felt like crying. I just feel like...
You should... I can't watch the video. Like, they've made the video onto DVD for me so I can watch that Christmas, and I just can't because, after he turned off that karaoke, my sister literally took him to the hospital. I think it was Boxing Day or Christmas Day. And then they started doing biopsies and things. So that's really scary. Yeah. I can't... Yeah.
Well, I know it comes like many years too late. I feel sorry that you had to go through that.
Thank you. But it makes you so tough. Like, it makes you really, really resilient. And actually, what you and I were talking about before, this boss that I had that was bullying me, both of her parents are still alive. So I just knew that this was a woman that would never be tougher than me. Bully me all you want, you will never be tougher than me. I've watched my dad die literally in front of me. I was there when he passed, right? So... you can't ever unsee that.
Yeah.
That changes you. Because both of her parents are still alive, she'll never have the empathy to know the depth of experience and resilience and grit that a death of a direct family member gives you. Yeah. So I also knew, like, that barrier's always going to be there with us. Like, her compassion is never going to be there about me taking her bullying while my mum's sick. She's never going to have that compassion because both of her parents are alive and well.
She hasn't experienced that, like, the lowest lows of...
the pressure of what it would be like to have that in your life at the same time as having that raining down on you. So as much as obviously it's an awful thing that's happened with Dad, but, like, I'm so grateful for the compassion it's given me.
Yeah. Strong.
Yeah.
Strong lady.
Super strong.
Let's talk about your mom.
Yeah, so firstly, Mum has a very rare disease that only 600 families in the world have.
Okay.
And it gives people not only a physical disability that you would expect from something like multiple sclerosis, but it also affects the mind too. So it's kind of this awful double whammy, right? So you end up in a wheelchair from a whole bunch of strokes, And at the same time, your brain matter is kind of breaking down, so you've got holes in your brain too. So it's quite aggressive. But my mum has had it the least aggressive of some cases that I've seen, compared to her sister, for example. So that part of it, I feel very, very blessed. And her sister's daughter is my best friend in the whole world, is like a sister to me. And I feel very grateful that I have someone that I can track this experience with, who gets it, who loves me, who I support, and is literally like another person on the planet that I can go to talk to about this, because it's so rare. I mean, it's difficult. There's no other way to describe it. Like, I was 29 when it happened. So that's still really young. Like, most of your friends at 29, their parents aren't in a nursing home.
No.
Yeah. So that's also changed my entire attitude towards health. Because as much as there was hereditary stroke factors, there's also non-hereditary stroke factors, which my mum had, like diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, that she could have been controlling as well. So I was never a health fit girl. Like, I was never into that. But I think seeing mum's progression there's nothing like watching that to scare you more. Like, taking your mum to the shower and bathing her and seeing that she has to be bathed in a chair because she can't stand up, there's no better motivation to make you go exercise, because you don't want to lose the use of your legs that somebody else has to bathe you, so yeah.
Let's talk about your mom a bit more. So what is it like when you visit your mom? Like, I'm saying like so much and I'm very conscious because you're like professional.
You're professional too.
I'm semi-pro, not like legit pro. Not as pro as you, Simone.
Oh gosh.
I can see you getting emotional when you post videos about your mom. You had a talk when you're talking about human connection, about your mom, students who still visit her. And at one point you choked up.
I choke up all the time when I talk about her, because it's not something like dad that's resolved and is in the past. Like, the thing with mum is ongoing. So, it's not abstract for me. It's like I'm still living it, right? But I think, isn't it amazing that you can walk through the world and you can have sadness like that in your life, yet you can still have a rockin' time on the planet. Like, I still love my life, even though there is this sad thing that's part of it. And I think that's, if there's any lesson that people who follow me take away, is that's beautiful. Like, we all have sad things in the closet that are happening. It doesn't mean it should milk your joy. In fact, it should enhance your gratitude and joy for life.
Say hi to Janice.
Hi, Janice. Hi, how are you? I've met you before, right?
Yeah.
You're so cute. But you had shorter hair?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like to join us, or would you like to? Yeah. Cool.
Thank you for giving your time, babe.
You're welcome.
Let's talk about you on radio a bit more. Your thing is like promoting positivity. Like, you have videos of yourself dancing. You have, how to deal with, office talk. This is my neighbor. How to deal with office toxicity. You're all about empowering people. That comes across really clear, that you are out to, I don't know if I make it sound cheesy, but you're out to make people's lives better. Where does that all come from?
See, I don't think it even started as that. I just, I was so, I think, creatively stunted at the radio. You've got to understand that I've been in radio since I was very young. 4 stations, 3 number 1 stations in 3 different markets. So I've kind of seen the different things that radio has to offer, and I think I was just getting closer to the time that I had to start pursuing the speaking dream. It was kind of knocking on the door. But in that interim time when you're trying to follow your voice, I needed to shake things up for me. And I think the dancing was a watershed actually for me, because what I realized was people liked it when I showed the real Simone, and like when I was just goofy and stupid. Whereas before that, everything was very plastic, fantastic. Also largely because I didn't know what my new voice was. You have to understand, in entertainment, when you're in your 20s, that's your peak time. Well, I mean, it's funny. As the internet's changed, I'm going to argue later that that's no longer your peak time. But in the analog days, which is what I started in 2005, you kind of knew as a girl that you were told I should say you were told as a girl that, 20 to 30 was really it in terms of you'll be young, you'll be pretty, that's when you're going to make your money, that's when you're going to endorse products. So you're in that Virgin Radio, MTV, 987 kind of branding. You're young, all of the fashion brands want to work for you. It's all very sexy. And then as you get closer to 30, that kind of hinges off. And I could feel that already in Dubai at the end of that time, from about 29 to 30, the last year I was there. And then, of course, Mum got sick. So that changed everything anyway. So then when I came back to Singapore, and obviously having had this big life-changing experience of my mum becoming disabled and all of this stuff, being in that space didn't, that just was just abhorrent to me on the inside. But the problem was I still looked like this Pan-Asian, quite young girl on the outside. So I didn't know how to bridge that gap. So for a long time, I just posted vanilla content that didn't really risk anything until I went through, firstly, therapy, grieving about my mum and my dad. And started self-educating again and doing courses and reading books and all of these things. And eventually, once you do a lot of self-work, and not everyone does it, but if you really love being a creative and you do that self-work, it's like seeking inspiration, and then you just crack open and the vulnerability starts coming out, and I feel like it's like a second wave. But if girls really don't rebrand after 30, if a lot of girls will kind of at that time, and I say girls because we know for a fact it's not the same for men in entertainment. No. It's just not. So it wasn't a plan for me. I was like, I'm just not comfortable with this content anymore. I'm not comfortable with outfits of the day anymore and crediting fashion, but it's not fulfilling me. So something had to give, and I'm just so grateful it finally did.
Yeah, you weren't always the motivational person that you are today. After we got to know you, I remember, I think after that you were still doing the vanilla stuff.
But that was the rock bottom. So you met me at the rock bottom, and then if you can literally track that time, it was literally 2 years, and then everything was exactly as I always wanted it to be. Now we're exactly creatively where I want to be. But it takes you to, you have to go to rock bottom to get the good stuff. There's no good stuff at the top. So I'm reading a book called Louder Than Words, Unleash the Power of Your Authentic Voice. I think that's what it's called, Todd Henry. And he says every creative venture is a U-shape, where you start off and you're so excited about your adventure and you're like, yes, I'm going to be a world-class oil painter. And you buy all the oil paints and you get the canvas and you go and pay thousands of dollars for a painting retreat and you're ready. And then you learn the basics, you're doing okay, and then there's a U. You go down, you realize how difficult it is, largely because the stuff that you're producing during this downward curve is nowhere near what you imagined it to be when you got all excited. And then you hit down to this rock bottom that I was talking about. And most people quit before they come back up. So most people quit before the good stuff. And quit, and when I say quit in this, I mean most people decide to be vanilla and plateau and accept a salary and don't push themselves. And they will live and die there. And they'll never produce anything that inspires people at all. Or you can choose to push through that pain, go through the self-education, the therapy, the bullying, all of it, and push yourself out the other side. But the problem is that everybody on social media and even in the creative world, everyone is comparing their lowest point or the hardest part with other people's what they call the mid-career is the beautiful part, right? The mid-career is the beautiful part where you've got some aptitude, but you still got that juice, that excitement for what you do, and it's still going. Everyone's comparing their disengaged, boring, lack of inspirational day job with other people's, the course that I'm on now, where it's, literally turning down work. Because there's so much demand. But what they don't see is the 2 years before, while I had a full-time job and I basically didn't sleep, doing all the work to get up there. So that's the problem with our world, is we're comparing other people's creative curves, but we're all in process of our own creative peaks and troughs. We're all still in the midst of doing it. We just got to stop comparing the wrong parts of the graph with each other.
you have this infectious positivity that
Really?
that I was not prepared for. Yeah.
Because I wasn't when you and I met 2 years ago.
Yes.
I wasn't. I was at the bottom of the trough. And literally I was laughing to the girls at my last meeting, like, what a maverick am I? There was no plan B. If speaking didn't turn out, look, because once you're in entertainment and you enter entertainment, you become so lopsided as in your development. You know, I was always a very clever girl at school. You know, my mum's a former RGS teacher, so my sister and I were both, I was the top graduating girl in my high school, like all of that. But I allowed myself to get very dumb in entertainment. I didn't upskill. I paid more and more attention to my external because that's what I was told was important. And I neglected all of the real gifts God gave me, which is how fast my mind to mouth reaction is.
Yeah.
And, all the things that were really my gifts, I was just throwing away in favor of this losing race with beauty, which is the older you get. It's a losing race, honey. Get off the track. It's a losing race. Forget it. Right? So what a wasted few years they were between, ending my career in Dubai, taking care of mum. The taking care of mum years were not a waste. I needed that. It was a humbling experience, and I needed that. But the 2 years after, where I was in that, and anyone listening to this who is going through this right now, where you're in that disengagement with your work bracket, you need to just, what is going to unlock that, particularly if you're creative, is you need to go and start doing something else that's creative, that's unrelated to your job. And that is going to unlock everything for you.
You know what, Simone? The dream that's always being sold to us is to be rich and famous. And to have you, someone who's been in the spotlight, who's in the public eye, you're like a known personality, to have you come and say that, it's really about using the gifts that God gave you.
It's totally different from what we grew up learning.
But you have to understand the millennials, the guys that are 10 years younger than us, they have a different narrative based on authenticity and purpose. So I'm actually doing a podcast. Okay. And it's not about how to replicate the habits of billionaires so you can be a billionaire. It's not. It's like, I want to speak to everyday people that have been through some really harrowing stuff about how they walk through life grateful and happy despite the things that they've been through. I have friends here in Singapore who own fashion brands who used to be in orphanages.
Oh, wow.
They were so poor that the cleaners of the void deck used to have to give them money to buy food. And now they are just incredible people walking in our community, and yet there's all this complaining about materialism and I don't have enough, when these are real heroes.
Yeah.
Right? Walking, because you can't take it with you. And I know that's cliched, but I've spent more time with people, and this is part of my speech, at the end of their lives than anyone of my age that I know. Because of being with mum in the nursing home. So I literally got to chat with women in palliative care. Besides someone being a nurse or a doctor, I got to hang out with women in palliative care for months when I was in Australia at that nursing home. And not one of them talk about what car they used to own or how much money they had or how many followers on Instagram, if Instagram existed. Every one of them is just running over in their heads over and over about the human connections they made in their lifetime. Yeah. That's why my mum's students visiting her in Australia are so powerful. Yeah. Those connections are now keeping her quality of life up. Because if you're in there and you weren't a good connector in your life, you got no visitors. Yeah. And you're alone in a wheelchair, in a nappy. And nobody wants to talk about this, but I'm very comfortable talking about this because it's so normal to me after spending so much time there. And that's really the truth. You can't take it with you, Luke. And fame is just anonymity waiting to happen. So true. You look now, Lisa Marie Presley has just announced she'll be releasing a tell-all book about her relationship with Michael Jackson. You walk on the street and ask a millennial, who's Elvis Presley? Who's Lisa Marie Presley? Do you know Michael Jackson? You might get someone know Michael Jackson. And Elvis was the most famous man on the planet. Yeah. Fame is just anonymity waiting to happen. The best thing about leaving radio is my anonymity. I get to make more money without having to feel that I belong to the public. Yeah. That's amazing. I wouldn't have wanted that at 25. I would have wanted it the other way around.
I had the feeling that today you were going to school me. I didn't expect.
I don't mean to school you.
No,
This is just how my mind works, right?
And this is like not scripted. It's just coming out of you.
This is what I think about day to day.
Yeah.
So can you imagine how alienating it was for me in a conventional entertainment environment in Singapore with a brain that doesn't think within a box at all? Like, yeah.
Let's talk about that, the entertainment industry in Singapore. So for yourself, a radio, TV personality, describe what the environment is like for you.
I think it's very different compared. It depends whether you are signed, like I was, to a contract with a major player, or whether you're freelance. Like my friends who are quite bohemian and quite freelance are really kind of happy, and it's not about. I need to be quite comfortable, but some people are really bohemian. They just want to create. I have a friend who hosts a major TV show regionally and lives in like a bedsit because TV pays nothing now, right? So. Lives in a bedsit, but really happy, scripts independent movies that he submits to film festivals, and is creatively a billionaire. If we're talking in creative units, he's a billionaire. He's fulfilled, he's happy, he brings you good energy, he's on it, he's motivated. You know, for me, that's more rare than making money, actually. Having been through all the evolutions in different places
Singapore?
I've lived.
Is this in Singapore?
He's in Singapore.
My friend was talking about how in Singapore we're all about importing talent, importing our entertainment. So we don't have a culture here of fostering talent.
Well, we do foster talent because I started my first radio gig here on Power 98 and then got poached after 6 months to go to Virgin Radio International. They didn't poach me from Australia. It was Singapore that gave me that shot. Virgin Radio would never have found me. I was literally, was doing the night show at Power 98. I would sleep in the storage room because I couldn't afford the taxi to go home and then come back in the morning for the programming meeting.
No way.
So I would just like sleep in the sleeping bag. And I was earning the kind of money that, I don't even know, I look back, how did I survive on that? It's the kind of money that Arabs lose in the couch. it's like change from my former bosses in Dubai, you know? It's like, oh.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk about this. Can you tell? For the longest time on your Instagram, you would post photos and people would say, "You are so beautiful. Your boyfriend must really love you." And for so long, your replies to them were, "Yeah, if only Singaporean men would dare to ask me out, or if only I had such luck in dating in Singapore." Can we talk about what it was like for you then, like your love life? What was it like then?
It just, I was single for a really, really long time. Like 8 years is a very long time. Obviously within those 8 years, I lived in 3 different countries. So, but I think Singapore particularly is very difficult for someone who kind of sits between both East and West. And for someone like me that is strong-willed, intense, sassy, opinionated, all of these things that prior to this whole Me Too movement, like prior to that even happening last year, I always felt a little bit of a sense of shame that I was so self-possessed. Yeah. And so empowered. And what do you realize now, post-Me Too movement, the reason women are following me and have this hugely emotional response and connection is that, they look at that and go, oh, how do you get that? I want a little bit of that. Women want to be set free right now. That's the cultural zeitgeist, right? Yeah. And I'm gonna enjoy that for as long as possible because I have lived 34, 33 years of feeling ashamed, growing up with a mother saying, shh, be quiet like your cousin. Be more like your cousin. Good girls aren't loud like this. Don't be loud, right? That's how we grow up as Asian women, being told. And not just Asian women, women in general. I even get shit from, excuse me, I even get teased. I did a video today. I get teased for, like posting about my career like a man. I post about my career on LinkedIn and on Instagram like a man. And I never thought this was wrong because I used to always do this in Dubai and it would get me so much work. Yeah. So I just thought of this as marketing, right? But I didn't realize that it would, that there is such a cultural disdain to that until I read an article about the American female football player who's also a lesbian who, brought the US to glory in the last World Cup, and yet is so polarizing in America because to see her celebrating her goals and to see her soaking up her victories is not seen as ladylike. You know, where we've watched Usain Bolt at the end of countless runway, you know, doing the victory sign, but what? It's not okay when a woman does it. And like a little part of me is a bit enraged by that. And because I do the thing where I post and I don't watch, I didn't realize that I was being so different until this Me Too movement and all this happened. And I started looking more deeply into why I always felt it was hard to date, why I always felt men treated me like you're too intense or you're too this, and why did I feel shame about that? Like, let's breathe into that and assess what that is about.
Can I ask, this is you dealing with the perception, but what was it like with the men? How do you know, or how could you tell that they didn't take to it so well?
So it's interesting. I think with foreign men, so men who are Western, basically, who live here in Singapore, I would speak a lot because I knew that they didn't follow the radio at all. So I didn't feel conscious of that public platform. So I was very free and open. And I think that is still very confronting to the type of Western man that chooses to move to Asia for certain reasons. Who's looking for a certain sort of woman. Know what I'm saying, brothers and sisters?
We're talking about some type of fever.
I got the fever. Yeah. We can go into that later. There's got a whole bit of conflict going on inside of me. But then with men who were Asian that I would go on dates with, I would be very quiet because they might be following the media. But because my face is so expressive, I don't do the Asian showing face very well because I grew up in Australia where you were encouraged to emote, right? And then when I entered entertainment, like in Australia and in the UAE, they were like, you know, Arabs are super dramatic. They're like Latinos, right? So you were encouraged to do that. So my face doesn't lie. So even though I was quiet, if the guy said something that I thought was batshit crazy, my face would be like, you know, like really visual. But in my mind, I think like, yeah, you're cool, Heng. He can't read you, right? But like, no, not at all. I think on both fronts, it was still a challenge. And if we link both of those stories and I once again breathe into those stories, you know what that's telling me? Both of the Simones going on all of those dates was just not comfortable being her frickin' self. So once I got to the point where I was like, okay, boss lady's here, this is who I am, and I didn't fight it. And I really started loving me as I am, accepting that and not feeling the shame. That's
when you say both Simones, who are these two conflicting?
The Simone that was being opinionated, going on dates with Western guys, and the Simone that was trying to be quiet, going on dates with Asian guys, and being expressive. They were still the same Simone, but they're augmented differently, depending on your market, if you like.
So now you join them together.
So now, no, not joining them together. Just like going, both of them are part of you, and whichever one wants to come out today is fine, and that's your prerogative. And if he doesn't like it, fine. Go to Tanjong Beach Club, enjoy.
I think I just want to end with like on a positive note. What's something that you feel people need to know, especially today? Could be men or women, anything.
That it all starts with you. I truly believe to the core of me that the journey is internal. The journey is not physical. The journey is not, it's all internal. If you reset and heal your heart and heal your mind, and we've all been through stuff, right? We all have stuff. You can live a life better than you could have ever imagined. We're every single one of us here, the fact that we're in a house with air conditioning and a microphone, we should be hopeful because we've been already born with a leg up. Yeah. Yes. So I used to always say on the radio, every single person who can listen to us right now on a device that has an app, you're doing better than 90% of people in the countries surrounding us. Yeah. What does that say? We should all be freaking hopeful every day. We should be hopeful bunnies in this country. Should look out to our neighbors in Thailand and Indonesia and Malaysia and be like, we are so blessed in this island.
Yeah, why do we still complain so much, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so before we really wrap up, what does the future hold for Simone Heng?
Hopefully sharing a stage with some really great speakers internationally and being based in Singapore but doing more global keynote speaking as well. And just loads of travel and general all-around gratitude and happiness. I'm so excited for you for this, Luke.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. Do you have any closing words?
Stay thirsty, Singapore. Like, keep upskilling, keep reading more books, keep looking in your community and also abroad as to how you can live a more enriching life. And when I say enriching, I definitely do not mean more materialism. I mean truly, authentically living at the full range of emotion, whether that be sometimes down, sometimes up, the full range, feel it all. Experience the world. There is pain as is part of the world. You know, we can't stay pampered and cotton-wooled. And my parents wanted to raise me that way, you know, in Australia and protect me and keep me safe. What they didn't count on was that the tragedy would happen within the family itself. It wasn't some Angmo's leading me to become a drug dealer, okay? Like,
Or get pregnant.
or some guy getting me pregnant, right? The tragedy happened within the family itself, and then I was forced to grow up and then travel everywhere and do the external journey so I could do the internal journey. But I don't regret. I feel like I've really tasted life. I've lived different lives. I've seen things, and I think a lot of the complacency and the judgment comes just from a lack of seeing more things.
Do you have any last words to say to Simone? No?
Oh, I love you too, babe. I love you too.
Even though you don't say it.
If you ever have any #alpha female problems, you can always DM me. Okay. Or email me. I have your email now.
Yeah, I just want to say that this has been a real pleasure for me. We had an episode of the Simone Heng show. You know, I feel like you really just, you've inspired me. You've made me think about fame. I always grew up wanting to be famous, but you got me thinking more.
It's so funny. Once you've tasted it and you've had it, you realize that it's just, it's so not a gauge of anything. Yeah. It's so random.
I know you are very, very busy, but maybe sometime down the road, if we could catch up, we could do this again. I would just love to just hear about how you're doing. I really wish you all the best in all the things that you want to do, becoming a keynote speaker, mastering small talk. I'm very happy.
Being less judgmental.
We need to learn that too. Give us tips. My heart is with you, especially when it comes to your mother. I'm just very, very, very happy that I got to do this. Thank you very much, Simone.
Oh my God, you're so welcome, guys.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thank you.